Those who decide told us there was no alternative. They said the demand was fixed. They said reliability needs scale, and scale won't wait. They said firm power, constant power. Said the future needs it now. They called it a renaissance. Said the decision was already made. They said delay was danger. They said review was over. This is how the nuclear Overton window began to narrow. Those who decide talked about solutions, talked about schedules, but not about keeping what remains when the generation ends. They talked about storage for now, they talked about fixes ahead. They said the process was technical, not ours. They didn't talk about the horizon, they didn't name who stays accountable. The nuclear Overton window never held a long term. Asking slowed things down, then caution cost too much. Consent became friction, so it was pushed aside. The nuclear Overton window moved again, from open debate to settled position. Rules were shortened, reviews rushed. Governance turned into something to move through. The window didn't shatter, the push continues. Here stands the nuclear Overton window, not cracked, not broken, held open on purpose. Not a future to keep reopening, not a decision to keep revisiting. This must be decided, this must be carried, this must not be passed forward without an end in sight. Remember this moment, the nuclear Overton window must close. Not paused, not deferred, entered into practice with consent. This should not remain unresolved. This is what we must remember. This is what we must remember.
Hello, you wonderful souls. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing better than the whales are doing. I ain't doing very good. Is there anybody out there that sick of me doing whales? Speak up. I want to hear you in the comments section. Anybody out there? Out there that is tired of me doing whales? Let's hear it. Comment sections are open. You can call in to the show. It's 709-740-4076, and you can be heard in Canada. Don't be shy. I'm not. Is there anybody out there who doesn't like me covering whales all the time lately? Anybody sick of it? Don't be shy. Let's hear it. Let me hear those words. I'm sick of it, or something like that. Come on. I know you're out there. A crazy story tonight. Oh my goodness. We're going to start off with the pygmy sperm whales. They grow 90 feet. I don't know how they got the name pygmy, but they got it. Should we stop donating the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society and Greenpeace for hiding the Fukushima effects? Well, first off, yeah. That would be the right thing to do. Then they might smarten up. They might actually start covering this stuff, right? Well, you know, they're not going to be covering whales for much longer, I can tell you that much, because they're going to be gone in a couple of years. Kind of delay have I got? 10 minutes or something, isn't it? Not even caught up to me yet. This new YouTube system is torture, eh? I don't even know. Hang on here. It's torture. You gotta fight with everything on the screen. It's a stupid system. My color looked that friggin' bad. It looks okay on my side. I know it's low quality up there, but on my screen down here, my personal screen. Is there anybody out there? Hello, everybody. I put a comment there earlier. I don't know if we'll see it on because my chummy's up there. Right, I had 2 thumbs in 7 hours, which is normal. Hi, James. Hi, Beer. Trent. Dana Nasana. Hugs for Dana. Hi, Dana. Colette. Hi, Colette. Yeah, really, eh? That's cool, James. People like it on Sunco. I think it's just being censored on YouTube because you're hanging out with the likes of me. I can get you in trouble. Well, we're waiting to see if I got anybody out there who hates me covering whales. My goodness, I got... The stories I got tonight are just wild. What's the first thing you notice when you're looking at this picture? See the spinal column sticking right up? That's a pygmy sperm whale. They get 90 feet, 90 tons, I believe it is. I got the digits here. 79 feet. Dana, you're a lawyer. They got proof now that I lied. I joke around sometimes, right? Which I shouldn't do, obviously, but I do. And it, to some people, it probably comes across as a lie, maybe, or something, because instead of screaming, I make a joke of things, right? When I used to scream back in the good old days. So they can weigh 90 tons, 190 tons. Let me figure that out, actually. Because the difference is important. If you're afraid of green, hang on for a second. 90 tons, 2 pounds. Oh, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about metric. So we know what 90 tons is, 180,000 pounds. I was thinking of metric conversion because France is metric, Canada is metric, China is metric, right? Will it let me put metric in there? I wonder. Chickadee China doesn't know what to do with that. me put it up there. Google's, I screwed that up, didn't I? Should have deleted that. 90 metric tons. 198,000 pounds, which is a big difference right here in Canada. So when you hear the quotes in Canada, they're in metric. In France, they're metric. In shithead land, or Japan, it's metric. So it could weigh 200,000 pounds. I don't know how they get away with calling that a pygmy. Well, they don't need to worry about it because they'll be gone soon. They were alarmed to see large groups of pygmy sperm whales, or pygmy blue whales, the second largest. So is a pygmy blue whale larger than a fin whale? Yes. So there should be, fin whales should be the third largest species. I guess, pygmy sperm, a blue whale and a blue whale are the same. They were alarmed to see large groups on their migratory route. They were 6 weeks late. Looking emaciated and malnourished to the point of, you can see they were skinny whales with visible ribs and vertebrae and backbones from the airplanes and shoreline. That's called severe emaciation. They're not 90 tons anymore. Let's put it that way. The big annual migration, like clockwork, for millions of generations, was significantly delayed. I've been studying the island for a decade. I've been studying marine life since I was a kid. I grew up in a place with no automobiles right on the ocean. Come from a long, many generations of people that grew up in this little tiny coastal, isolated. But we knew the species, we knew the animals, we knew the wind, we knew the birds, we knew the weather. And we survived on that coastline for many generations. And then, I traveled a hell of a lot. I was involved heavily. I worked most of the industries when I was really young, in Canada, the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. I actually worked most of the industries. I had incredible, unique insight into the fishery. I'm one of the few people, I'm sure, that ever done something like that. And have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours under the ocean as a commercial diver, up to 300 days a year, 6 hours a day on the ocean floors. I kind of come from a pretty cool place, and I actually have a really good education. I'm self-taught, but I have an incredible education in nuclear, and for a bizarre reason, because I got injured as a commercial diver. And you know how every song has a memory for you. Like you hear a song from when you were a kid, you're a kid again for a moment, right? Well, when I got injured, I couldn't listen to that music. I couldn't watch movies because they had memories. I couldn't watch TV because it had memories. I was fortunate enough to get injured in a time when Harvard University, Yale University, Stanford University, Oxford, MIT University, etc., were posting their entire courses online. And by some bizarre lining up of the stars, I had gathered up everything I could find on nuclear because nuclear had no memory for me. It didn't hurt me when I listened to it. I didn't wish I was healthy and back on the ocean. It was a traumatic imagery, right? It was the end of my career and the end of my life as I knew it. I had the world was my oyster. I was a very fortunate person, but it was all snatched away. And I was extremely well respected. I rescued a hell of a lot of people in incredible adverse conditions on the ocean, on the bottom of boats, on rocks with huge storms, in adverse, absurd conditions. Many times. There was a skipper, many commercial dive vessels on top of that. And when I was growing up, I had every crack in my hand was cracked wide open. Every crack in my finger was cracked wide open my entire childhood from salt water, from squid, from hooks, and from ground loins, and gangins, and gillnets. I was raised by people 60, 70, 80, 90 years old that taught me the way of the ocean. So I grew up in this bizarre, when you look back on it, bizarre world that doesn't exist and people can't relate to. And so when I got injured, I gathered up around 7,000 lectures on nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and nuclear this and nuclear that. There's 9,000 industries in the nuclear. There's an absurd amount of material we produce. And I started noticing discrepancies. And I thought of it as how fortunate was I that I could have access to the best shakers and movers on the planet, who I now hate with a passion, who I absolutely despise and I have nothing but contempt for. I'd spit in the face of every one of them if I caught them. They were molding, and they almost done it to me, they were molding the victims that went to these institutions to hate us, and they hate the species and hate our planet, and to think only as a globalist would think, to think for what would the globalist benefit by you doing. And, you know, when I started researching post-Fukushima, I was already at it for a decade at that stage. But post-Fukushima, when Fukushima happened, you know, I had made multiple videos that day and following days and weeks, and I have never stopped, right? And if I'm not out doing field studies and research expeditions. So I have an incredible insight. So when they quote a marine biologist who has 10 years studying a whale, I say to myself, she studied that little spot, and that's an advantage for me. But I've studied the world and all the species and all the oceans, and I've worked at many of it. And so I have something to contribute to, I hope. And so when I see all the whales, in groups of them, are emaciated, are looking emaciated and malnourished, and this is the only picture that they really showed you that can give you any insight. That has haunted me for hours and hours today. When I thought, you know, after the last number of days of covering this topic, all these emaciated whales, I wasn't expecting anything else to haunt me, because if you've been following me for the last number of days, there's lots there that can haunt you forever, right? It shouldn't exist. We've never seen this pre-Fukushima. And what we're seeing is symmetrical throughout all the species. I think that's very worrisome, because in a couple of years, Greenpeace and the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society is not going to have any whales to go out and protect. And so there's in their interest now to protect themselves and their cushy little life where everybody throws everything at it and you don't have to do anything of consequences. I have consequences every day for what I do. And my consequences, I think, is a hell of a lot more severe than Greenpeace and Sea Shepherd combined. Because I don't shy away from controversial topics that should be addressed and that are being funded so they could be addressed, but they're not being addressed. And I find that offensive. And I disrespect them for not covering this. So a worrying trend among the blue whales in Timor-Leste waters, skinny whales with visible ribs and vertebrae and backbones, visible from drones and the shoreline and plains. 6 weeks behind their annual migration. Sound familiar? We've seen that with the grey whales, the humpback whales. And they're showing up in the exact same conditions. And we're seeing this symmetrical, as you'll see tonight. The season is very late this year. A biologist who studied them for a decade. A perfect student in my world. I'm not just concerned, I'm absolutely alarmed. And so you should be. Bless your heart for acknowledging that. But you can see the peanut head here. It is also quickly becoming known as the best places in the world to site a subspecies of blue whales known as the pygmy blue whales, which migrate thousands of kilometers from their breeding grounds in Banda Sea, Indonesia, down to Australia. Yeah, Australia's a pretty terrible place for a turnaround for all the species. For the whales, the Timor-Leste coastline is like a major ocean highway, but for the past 6 weeks it's vacant. And so they have their own theories, right? And in many ways they're right a little bit. These upwellings are like nature's elevators, bringing colder water from the nutrient-rich deep sea up to the surface for marine life to feast on. But there's a problem with that. That cycle was broken post-Fukushima. And you have warm waters because of that. There's less food. There's less food because we broke the food chain. When the nuclear industry inception was the catalyst for the countdown for the species worldwide, not just in the ocean but on land. Because there's no species on the planet that has an autoimmune trigger that can defend against anthropogenic man-made radiation's bioweapon attribute effects. It's it's an anthropogenic man-made atom, for instance, same as a normal atom in size. You can put 200 million of them on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. But a man-made anthropogenic isotope / atom, if it's ingested or if it's in proximity to you, it's pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. And so that's wrecking chromosomes and cells and DNA. Your body has to try to repair that every second. It does that with white blood cells. But a second later, it pulses again and wrecks endless amounts of chromosomes, DNA cells, and everything else, right? Blood plates and whatever. And so your body can't keep up with that. And so if you're bioaccumulating it, your enormous amount of resources into producing white blood cells to try to repair the damage, attack the source. This leaves your immune system compromised. You're more susceptible to parasites and pathogens and viruses which normally couldn't take hold, but are always present. Climate change, which is 80 years of emissions from the nuclear industry, pulsing energy every second. If carbon can't be climate change, carbon is more whales, more birds, more seals, more plants, more trees, more puppies, more insects, more bushes, more food. It's recycled into something with replicating cells. That's what carbon happens to carbon, right? More carbon, the bigger the plants are. And so the industry, a long time ago, came up with this narrative, and now that people have access to an incredible amount, endless highway of information, they can't redact that narrative, right? Because that's entrenched and embedded in the universities and school and the lexicon of all languages worldwide through a horrifying, revolting parasitic public relation campaign that is budgeted in the billions each year to instill this nonsense into the general population so you can't have a conversation with the average person because they're mentally incapacitated with propaganda. It's very effective on top of that. The only emission that can hurt you, that creates plumes that symmetrically covers the entire planet in less than a month and never goes away, is anthropogenic man-made radioactive fallout. And so you can trace back the mass species die-offs, the extinction event, to post-Fukushima. So you got to put that into the calculator if you're going to try to come up with an actual reason. Climate change having an impact on the migration of the blue whales. It's the radiation has broken the food chain. It's not just the blue whales, it's every whale, it's every species in the ocean. Alarmed to see large groups looking emaciated and malnourished, and that is a terrible story indeed. It's a frightening story, and it's haunted me all day when I thought I was a bit numb, a little cocky. Now, was there anybody in the comment section that don't want me doing whales or sick of me doing whales? I don't see any. Well, I'll continue then. And whoever was out there was right not to comment, because I would have disappeared you if you did. Because if you've seen what I've seen this week, And it's going to take me, I don't know how long to get through all of this stuff. It doesn't seem like there's any end to it. Here we are again tonight. Roads and slipways to be closed for challenging removal of 17-meter fin whale. We never heard of that this week. Is that the first time we heard of a fin whale this week? Sometimes I have to remind myself that, because I'm hated so much, I'm stalked and attacked so much, I have to remind myself that I earned the right to be in this conversation. Which sounds crazy, I know, right? So it's sad, but it's true that the endless, relentless attacks upon me and my reputation, sometimes that does get through to me, but then I rationalize it, like I've done tonight, and I realize that I have as much right as anybody, certainly so do you, but I earn the right to be included in the conversation. I intend to exercise that right every day till I can't do it no more, and then I'll have so much out there the world will never forget me. In 1,000 years, you mentioned Dana Durnford, the nuclear industry, if it still exists, we'll go, fuck Dana Durnford. Fucking bastard. Now bring me the last of that caviar. At 17.3 meters, fin whale live strand. They always do. They can't stay afloat anymore. If they stop, they'll sink. You'll never see them. The only reason we're seeing them is because they made it to the beach. And at best, on the best of days or the best of years, you can expect about 10% of them to make it to the beach or to a camera, where a camera can say, well, you really existed. Unlike me. That whale is emaciated beyond, but of course, it's rare for fin whales to visit the North Sea on top of that. Here's another one. 57-foot fin whale beached in, and you just want to look at that, you know that's an emaciated fin whale. You don't, if you've been here more than once, you're well versed. The second largest whale. Well, actually, the second largest whale, as far as I can tell, is a pretty little feller called a pygmy blue whale. Because that's fighting words, saying you're the second biggest when, well, I guess maybe, I do believe that the baby pygmy is heavier anyway, if not a little bit bigger. I think they get to 80 feet, don't they? I cover so much I can't remember anymore. One of those days. And I thought today was Wednesday. Till about an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, I realized it was Thursday. I was like, oh. So I am justified. I am tired. It is a fin whale approximately 50 meters long, and there's no knowing at this stage what caused it to strand. Previous such beach whales locally have been cut into sections and buried. Like if you look at that, if you're going to make an assertion in a major media, which that media actually is, Grace, a heritage correspondent, and you look at this and you don't know that's an emaciated whale, you shouldn't be writing about whales. And if you're writing it for another nefarious reasons, shame on you. 57-foot fin whale beached in Solway, Scotland. Where was the other one to? Yorkshire coast. Well, get out of the way because Scotland's coming for second place for madness in that part of the country. Huge fin whale discovered, the second largest whale. See, other different whales. Not much. They're both severely emaciated. Don't know what caused it to strand. Oh, that got to be the same whale. Maybe I'm stupid today. Well, here's another one. Don't give up hope on me yet. Fin whale dies after stranding on Noss. Now, when you look at that whale, that's clear emaciation. That's just severe emaciation. And just bones, eh? Wow, horrifying. Fin whale dies after stranding. This is 2016 on Shetland. That's him, dude. Same fella. There you go. New York Times, 2012. So these types of, there's a few of these stories that have been shown up this week. Right, and my instant reflex was 2000 in December. So it's a year and a half or something, right? A little over a year and a half after Fukushima. And they're that emaciated. And then how did they, in that short period of time, did we really break the food chain that bad in that short period of time? Apparently we did. For certain places, right? Because the prevailing winds bring it right across the Pacific to Canada, United States. So that particular stretch got heavy doses, and the doses also washed back down to the coastlines over many months or years, right? A lot of these are particulates that are splitting atoms I'm talking about from the atomization of 36 reactor cores at Fukushima, which the world is living in denial, but that is absolutely uncontestably what happened. That is not a beach whale, that is a heartbreaking. So they got such a heavy dose on top of that. They could, if there was nutrition at that time, that they could have, there was krill at that time, but they weren't able to uptake the nutrition. They were a leukemia victim. They weren't hungry. If they had hair, it would have fallen out. An alien, because in 2012, they didn't know how to describe that. They didn't know what the hell that was. They thought it was a friggin' alien originally. They'd never seen anything like it pre-Fukushima. Right? There was no narratives cooked up there was no marine stranding networks when this whale died. Say in New York, or most of the world. And so they're the cover story for the radioactive fallout. Their job is to protect the nuclear industry. Never, ever mention all the dumping they've done in the ocean. 1,000 fuel pools splitting atoms into the environment. Or certainly Fukushima, which lost 36 massive reactor cores at the one time. Humpback whale strands itself on a Scottish beach in a rare incident. You see the spine column back there? On the tail? Shouldn't look like that. And then the British Divers Marine Rescue. These are terrible people that have continuously lied about the health, the effects, and omitted the fact that Fukushima is a contributing factor. And, 80 years of the nuclear industry, emissions into the environment. In a rare incident in Dumfries and Galloway, a different place, the whale trashing its tail flukes, desperately trying to maneuver itself. This whale wasn't trying to maneuver itself, it was trying to die. It came ashore to die. We're having all of these strandings. They're not strandings. These are whales that are not buoyant no more. They have no fat. They have no muscle mass. They have no blubber. They can't stay afloat if they stop. They'll drown. And this is their black swan. They come ashore. And the British group created, just because of this epidemic, this extinction event post-Fukushima, is there to protect the nuclear industry in the United Kingdom. That's their job. The organization said that humpback whale live stranding in the UK are few and far between. Not anymore. That's 2024. That's an incredible statement to be making in 2024, by the way. But see, anybody that knew anything about whales, or even looked at a picture of a healthy whale and looked at that, knew that was not, that whale was starving. Tragedy in nature at Pika Pika Beach. You can see that whale. Look at that. That's severe, horrific emaciation. That is unreal. Right? That's unbelievable. That's heartbreaking, that's gut-wrenching, it's agonizing, debilitating emaciation. Grim prognosis for a 60-ton whale. That's not a 60-ton whale, you kooky whack job. Stranded on a beach in Queens, December 26, 2012. See the rib cage? Look at that peanut head, holy shit. Look at the shoulder blade sticking out. Look at the invertebrates all the way back to his tail. Like, wow. There's no meat whatsoever. There's no blubber. There's no meat. That's 2012. That's the same whale, December, rather, 2012. New York, Queens, and New Jersey had seen a number of them show up on the migratory route. The whale's face and other parts of his body were abraded as it struggled to beach. It wasn't struggling to beach, it was dying. This animal is so emaciated, there's nothing we can do. So in 2012, they were stunned, is what I'm trying to show you. So there's a number of stories where I was hoping to get, I just felt I was supposed to get as much of that story as I could find, and that seems to be the theme going on right now for me. I'm trying to create an archive of this stuff because soon there will be no more. The whale is severely emaciated, and it was interesting how many times that narrative was showing up. So this is what a severely emaciated, it's worse than severe, it's the last stage of life, emaciation. They have nothing to sustain their life. They have bioaccumulated hard radiation in all the krill they were eating that has sequestered in their muscles, their organs, and their bones. And it's a terrible existence on top of that. Is unlikely to survive, the expert says. Well, I mean, I guess they don't want to be too descriptive or too bold or too aggressive, and you've never seen it before, right? It takes you back if you understand whales. You look at that and you're like, I never taught that in school. I've never seen pictures of something like that at college or university or in the boardrooms or anywhere else. Sadness as the whale dies, 2021 on Logue Swill. This whale is emaciated too. Look at this whale here. Large whale stranding on the French coast. Does anybody remember that? We covered quite a bit of it. I can't remember. I know there was 6 in a row or something that washed up, right? Hi, everybody. Yeah. Just making sure. Hi, John. Kilo. Charlie. When you look at that whale, again, an extremely emaciated animal. Again. A fin whale, I think. Not the highest quality picture for 2020, when everybody had at least a 30, 40 megapixel camera at their fingertips. Again, an extremely emaciated animal. Extremely emaciated. Abnormal spike in fin whales washing up on the French shores. It wasn't just fin whales, by the way. Experts are investigating the causes of death after no apparent sign of having been hit by a ship or caught in a trawler's net, which is a very interesting statement at the time of draggers. I also done that industry too. Not very long, but I had done it. The first thing they made me do was splice the big cables that are holding, it was a 100-foot dragger, And the deck boss didn't like me, and I know he didn't like me because he got me splicing the big cables. It's a great way to get a fat lip and a black eye real quick, those cables. and getting the spike in between them, right, to separate them to finish your splice. And of course, if the splice doesn't work out, you get fired, among other things. And so you had to do the whole, right, you had to trim it all the way back as far as you could trim it. So your hands are going to be bleeding heavy for the next number of days. But I was up to the challenge. I was like, hell yeah. She was going to bring me tea and coffee. She said, don't worry about that. We'll take care of you. He eventually liked me, but I didn't like him. Experts are investigating the cause of the death after no apparent signs of having been hit by a ship. Well, when you look at the back of the whale, you can see the bloated front of the whale. That'll go down over a few days, right? The carcass of a fin whale. You can tell by the back of it. That's emaciation. Potential viral pathogen. Because I don't know if I remember that story when we covered it in 2020. Just in the past month and a half, at least 6 fin whales, the second largest species of whales after the blue ones, were found dead. All were malnourished. Oh, really? I think what you mean to say is they were all emaciated. 6 fin whales they found were all emaciated. They were all starving to death. And so, of course, now I got to go find the evidence. Even though I got it there, there's the evidence. They were all have been malnourished. All 6 of the fin whales, at the time that story was published, were severely emaciated. They went up there because they were going to sink if they stopped. Every time they stopped to take a break, they would sink. And that's not part of their... Oh, I forgot how hot that was. That's perfect. The latest discovery measured 52 feet and maybe weighed 10 tons. In an average year, post-Fukushima, they're talking about clearly, between 3 and at most 10 whales are deposited dead on the French beaches. Which means 100 died, right? Now, this was 2020. But this wasn't true pre-Fukushima, is what I meant to say there. I seen this picture here, and I was saying everybody's going to love this picture. It's the Voice of America major news source, almost 4 million subscribers, emaciated fin whale. Look how big that animal is in this picture. And in the video, he's climbing up. Right, he's working to climb up. That's an emaciated animal. Right, that's a fin whale, and that's emaciated. The bottom right-hand corner is a fin whale behind me, or above me. And what is that? If this is an emaciated animal, fin whale, then what is that? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's an emaciated animal. Just because it's not denigrated all the way to what we've been seeing this week doesn't mean it's not emaciated. Emaciation is not just the last stages, right? Emaciation is after a few months or 6 months, 8 months of no food, they're losing a lot of the blubber. And then they're recognized at that stage as emaciated. But they can survive for, not all of them, but we have seen them survive up to several years. But when they finally die, it's spectacularly emaciated. This is 2020 we're talking about, right? So I was chasing down the story, 6 fin whales, and I've been noticing it's really hard for me to get the pictures of the evidence that I need. I know it's out there, and I'm not getting those links. I have to go through all kinds of tricks to finally get pictures. And so you'll notice that in some of my stories where I'm covering a whole bunch of medias that are talking about the story, and I'm taking screen captures because I'm looking for evidence. So if I don't find it enough to make a weirdo that I am happy, I'll have to go find another story. And then I just don't care. Once I get to that point, then I'll just keep going anyway. No matter how much evidence I gather up, I'll just keep going nuts until I've seen everything as I can find out there. No apparent sign of being hit by a ship. Yeah, because they're too busy killing all the birds and all the insects. Because all the birds and insects are dying of ship strikes. Everybody knows that. They haven't got time to kill the whales. And worldwide, since 2007, there's been around 1,200 ship and boat interactions, or whales and ships, boats interaction. Not all of them resulted in the boat or the whale dying. The common fin whale have all died within the past 6 weeks. All have been malnourished. All of them are on a hunger strike. They're on a hunger strike because they couldn't find any food. All have been now malnourished and show evidence of hemorrhaging in the cardiac and respiratory system. That's actually an unbelievably important facet to these stories. We don't see acknowledged. And that's what's really good about, there's nothing good about what I'm doing. What am I saying? Am I stupid? Well, it's good about documentation of an extinction event is we gather up all these little minutiae, these little details of details. Excuse me, my apologies. I wish I was wealthy like Sea Shepherd and Conservation Society and Greenpeace, so I could be all fancy and I can afford a comb to comb my hair and stuff, and get a shave. And I'm just making fun. But we don't hear Sea Shepherd coming out warning us and trying to change the world for the better. We seem to do the same old thing. And everybody donates to Greenpeace and Sea Shepherd. They have the big ships, they have all the academics hanging out with them, all the big shots, rubbing elbows with all the celebrities. Because they don't ruffle any mats and carpets with a whole bunch of dirty shit underneath it like we do. Humpback whales washes up on a Channel beach in France. Oh, what are we talking about? Humpback whales? This is 2022, Dana. It's an exceptional event for the region. They're used to it now, the last couple of years, I bet you. Tractors would pull the massive animals 20 to 25 tons away from the coastline to make sure it was swept out by the tide, because it could be dangerous for boats. Well, do tell. I got a folder now on where they acknowledge that whales are a liability. If you hit a boat, they could be responsible for the damage to the boat. Because it happens. It's recorded, it happened many times. But yet we're told they're getting hit by the ships. But what we're not told is they're dead, usually. Because live whales will typically get out of the way. They're not deaf. They can feel the vibrations. They can sense the approach. They're used to danger. They live in the ocean. That's their environment, not ours. It could be dangerous for boats in the busy shipping lanes that they don't belong into, by the way. This type of stranding is quite rare on our coast. The whales, mammals, migration passage is usually north of Britain. You do tell. League for Protection of Animals. What's up, yo? The League for Protection of Animals. Well, they failed everybody, didn't they? He did not rule out the possibility that the whale was suffering from an illness. What about emaciation, though? This is what we're seeing everywhere. Humpback whale washes up on Channel Beach. Oh, that's an emaciated whale. It doesn't matter the posture where it's being picked up is strapped up. You can see it's an severe emaciation. Endangered blue whale washes ashore in Cape Breton. The carcass was located north of Port Hood, Nova Scotia. Well, what do you think? If you're there, could you do a quick necropsy to see the basic? Yeah, you could. But when you look at that tail, because you're looking at the belly that way, right? You can't get a good view of its head, but you can see it's emaciated. You got a keen eye. Investigators try to determine what killed it. They got to go there first. It's in a location that isn't accessible, and we wouldn't be able to conduct a necropsies on site. Why not? You can't run in there with a big machete or a chainsaw and hack it open and do some basic stuff, really. You can't tow it because it'll sink. Whoa, what have we got here? That's severe emaciation. It'll sink if you try to tow it somewhere. Fisheries and Oceans Canada said today it'll not able to conduct a necropsy, animal autopsy, due to difficulty in relocating the whale to a more accessible location. You got helicopters. If you can bring out a big ship, you can bring a helicopter with a bunch of gung-ho university students in there with a few chainsaws and whoop it open, get a look, mutate it. That's your gig anyway, isn't it? That's emaciated. You don't need to. It died of starvation like all the other whales. It's an easy conclusion to draw, unfortunately. And very soon we won't be able to draw the conclusion no more because it'll be gone. $2018, that's emaciated. What's the odds of that? Another one in Humpback in Nova Scotia. A totally different place. Severe emaciation. Wild, eh? They just got the bones left and skin. Makes a full necropsy challenging. Why is a full necropsy challenging when you don't really need to do one? You know what it died of. You know it starved to death. Like all the other whales. 2022, fin whale washes up in Wellfleet shoreline. 57-foot male. What's going on with fin whales and 57 feet? Is that when they all pre-programmed now to go die when they're 57 feet or something? The initial finding from the necropsy did not point to a specific cause. Well, that's a starving animal. Like its whole spine is sticking up in the air, for goodness sakes. Wasn't hit by a ship. Man, I hate hearing that word. I'll tell you something right now. I do not like hearing that in every story. It is unfortunate that they are also occasionally found stranded on our beaches, Missy says. An animal rescue officer, which is the worst thing you could have done to that person. They had an ego that was 500 feet tall already. At the animal welfare group, the least likely to tell you the truth. Fin whales face similar human-caused threats as other whales. Vessel strikes. There's only been 1,200 confirmed since 2007 worldwide. So all of a sudden, every single whale. When you look at the fin on that whale, which they sometimes call a razorback, but it's not because it looks like that. It never looks like that. That is horrific emaciation. At Jeremy Point, the International Fund for Animal Welfare Scientists. But look at that spine. No obvious signs of trauma such as a ship strike. But when you're looking at that spine sticking up and that peanut head, that even though it's not a very good quality pictures, there's no mistake, and that's a severe emaciation. Rib cages are sticking out. And I mean, like, that the invertebrates in the spine sticking up like that because the skin is so emaciated, it's like a wet cloth, a wet towel lying down on the spine. And I gotta get pictures there to help articulate this clearly. Like with no skin on it, so you can actually see what the spine looks like. That way you'll be more in my side when I talk about that, because you'll appreciate what I'm trying to say. In necropsy found no obvious signs of trauma. The International Fund for Animal Welfare Scientists says, yeah, you're in the United Kingdom, so you're the last person this planet should consider trusting. How about this whale here? A new whale washes up on the beach in Vendee, 18 meters. It's the seventh since early fall. Wow. Holy shit, eh? But look at the emaciation of this poor puppy. That is horrific, eh? It's the seventh since early fall. I'm guessing they're all in the same body condition, which is no body, no meat, no fat, no blubber, no muscles. Just organs, skin, and bones. Their bone structure is quite big, eh? What we needed is somebody stood up behind that so we can really give us some perspective. It's the seventh whale stranded in France since the beginning of autumn. And this was November the 14th, 2020. Look at the peanut head on that poor puppy, eh? Wow. We see that the animals are very thin. No shit, Batman. That's not thin, that's horrifying. That's gut-wrenching. A security perimeter will soon be set up to prevent people from approaching. Their health risks linked in particular to the formation of gases in the carcass. There is no gases in the carcass. There's nothing to decompose, only the fuel, I guess the organs, which they can smell pretty bad pretty quick. But look at the spine sticking up in the back there. Holy shit. Look at that peanut head. Look at this. All you're seeing is bones. If you tore the skin off, that's ready to go on display in a museum. There's nothing left. Humpback whale washes up on Jersey shore. As soon as I seen that picture, I was like, yeah, he's emaciated. It's surreal, eh? That every species of every whale that we're finding is severely emaciated. How much longer are we going to pretend this is not going on? It's only going to last for a couple of years because they'll be gone. Excuse me. Forgot to turn the audio down. Or maybe I done it on purpose. Because I got a pretty sneaky side to me sometimes. I'm known to do stuff like that. I'm under incredible scrutiny too, all the time. Makes it hard to be just me. The industry is looking for any Freudian slips whatsoever so that they can chop it out and eventually string it together and see he's an idiot. He doesn't know jack shit. Don't listen to that guy. But when you really look at what I do and what I say and how I live my life, how I act, and the research and the field studies and everything else we've accomplished post-Fukushima, it's up there with the best of them, I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait. I should have turned the volume down that time. I forgot to. I was going a little crazy yesterday, but today I kind of lost my mind. That was probably a bad mistake. You'll hear me. Just hang on. I got a bad throat, right? And so I was going to put one of those hard rock soothers. But you're going to hear that rattling the whole time. So I said, oh, I can't do that. That's why I got the tea there for, stupid Dana. It's emaciated. Well, they acknowledged that, when you had 6 of them, that they were all malnourished. Another word for malnourished is thin. Another word for thin is the appropriate word, emaciated. Weighed around 15 tons. That's what their spinal column, their organs, and their bones weigh. It's around 15 tons, we've noticed over the years now. It was a rare phenomenon in the area. I'm not sure what time I've recycled that. The date is not there. No, the date's not there on that one. It's a female about 30 years old. If it's a female, it's not a juvenile. A 30-year-old is not a juvenile. I'm sure there's people out there who will argue. So it should weigh 3 times that anyway. So that, I think that qualifies rather as emaciation, because you got a belly shot, but you can see the rib cage poked up there. You can see the indentations of it. Oh, here we go. 18 to 27 meters, 59 to 89 feet, and weighs 65 to 90 tons, 80 tons. So let's say because it's 30 years old, you think 30 years old, they'd be mature, right? They'd be full grown by the age. Well, let's say it's not. Let's say it's only half at the age of 30. And put it on the 80 tons. So say it should weigh 40 tons. It only allegedly weighs 15 tons. Now that's a conjecture that it weighs 15 tons. Nobody picked it up and weighed it. But if it was weighs 65 tons, not a full-grown one, but a 65-tonner, not 80 tons, it would be 130,000 pounds. They're saying 15 tons, but that's their opinion, that they're looking at it, they're eyeballing it, and judging by everything else that they've had to say, they're not very honest people, so they're probably overestimating the actual weight, which is, from what we're seeing, typical. Who ran aground? No, it went up in desperation because it couldn't breathe. They went up to die, like all the other whales. When you go up on the beach, they're going up there to die because they're severely emaciated and they can't get a break. They're worn out. They have no energy left. They used up all their muscles, all their fat, all their blubber, all the thickness of their skin was consumed, was converted into energy. And they're able to do it because they're in the ocean. They're buoyant, right? Well, if they grow to 89 feet and the pygmy blue whale grows to 90 feet, then, no, I guess they're talking about species when they talk about the second biggest, not whale, but species on the planet, is the fin whale. That makes more sense. Dead whale found near France, that's razor thin. Look at the spinal column on that feller. Holy smokeroos. 2017. Man, that is something. My goodness. That is just horrific, eh? That is horrific looking. It's just bones, right? And skin left. Like the reason I'm zooming in, I know it's bad quality, but I want to make sure before I say something that I'm right. I don't want to misrepresent anything. I don't want to say, well, he's almost here, or, if he's almost emaciated, I'd like to say that instead. If he's not looking healthy, I'd like to say that instead. If he's severely emaciated, I want to say that because that's what it is, I should say. So when I was zooming in, I was trying to convince myself otherwise that it wasn't emaciated, but I'm not left with that. That's a 20 meter. It's about 20 meters. Well, I don't know, that let me get a first shot. That's more than 20 meters. That's more than 60 feet. I say you're getting close to at least 70 feet, if not more, with that whale. And weighed 15 tons. Really? Wow. So that massive creature only weighed 15 tons. I think that qualifies as emaciation. Yeah. Oi. You're welcome, Turkey. Lucy. All right, here we go again. That's right, Kilo. Is that true, Dana? That's what they used to call you at work? It's okay. I've been called everything, too. That weighed 15 tons, folks. I think it's much bigger than 20 meters. I think it's close to an adult as you can get. I think it's 80 feet probably. And I think they're downplaying it in order, right, the size in order to quantify, not saying the magic words, or maybe they do, I can't remember. The whale weighed less than 15 tons, or 1/3 of its normal weight. For a 60-footer is what they're saying, right? So a 60-footer should weigh 45 tons, is what they're saying. We consumed that it failed alive, that it came ashore alive, that it agonized over the beach. Well, thank you for saying that. Bless your heart for actually being honest. Even a little bit is pretty impressive this day and age. The specialist believes that one is certainly faced with a natural death, starvation. And we can exclude in a collision with a fishing boat. They got to go ahead and put a big turd in a punch bowl, right? Well done. Thank you very much. Well, you got to do that in every story. Less than 15 tons or 1/3 its normal weight. But he's a big boy. That's a big feller right there. I suppose 60 feet, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. A massive fin whale, a vulnerable species, beached itself in northern France. It didn't beach itself. It went up on the beach to die because it starved to death. Around 15 tons. And 15 tons is bones and skin and the organs. That's what 15 tons is. There's no excrement in the intestines. Even the blood is thin. There, look, you can see that tail there. You know what you're looking at, right? Whale rescued from marshy waters. 10 hours to haul back to 25-foot mammal. Look at this animal, man. It didn't want to go back. It ran up there so it can die in peace. Now you're going to let it drown in agony. At least on the land, it can live out a few extra hours and come to terms with it. But you drag it underwater, it's doing what it didn't want to do. And we're talking about a swamp. Whales don't go to swamps. Oh, this is I think they were confused whether this was a blue whale. I think they were like, the story here had me confused too, because I was like, I don't think it's a blue whale. But let me go back to that. Look at the rib cage sticking out. It's not a very high quality picture, as for some reason media doesn't want to publish high quality pictures. They do. They publish some amazing pictures of race cars or animals like wildlife, birds, or cheetahs running fast, or celebrities on the stage. But they publish the shittiest pictures human ever. These pictures are so low quality, you think the camera was from 1982 or something. I don't believe it's a blue whale. Hang on, maybe I'm wrong. Oh yeah, the first picture of the mammals, it is a bride's whale. So that was a bride's whale. You can't tell because It's so severely emaciated. They thought it was a blue whale, but it didn't look like a blue whale to me either. It's a prize whale. I remember that I'm just talking when I first started reading the story. You got to realize what I'm looking at all day, every day. I'm looking at this stuff all day, every day, and I'm here tonight to tell that story because otherwise I'm going to scream and my neighbors will get freaked out, right? Can't do that. Beached finback whale dies in New York City. And this is what I'm reading, and I'm seeing the top of the head, and I'm looking at the shoulder blade and the peanut head, and I'm like, crap, not again. Oh, and this is 2012, right? You remember what I was saying earlier about I'm out there trying to get as much information about each of the whales as I can? Because I'm looking for the best pictures, and this picture had a person there. You can see I tried to erase them because the AI software will fill in the gap behind it. And I just wanted to see it with my own two eyes. 60-foot, 18-meter fin whale dead on Thursday. Look at that head and look at that rib cage. It couldn't last for another hour or two, and it would have sank, right? So it ran up on the beach to live out his final moments, to have a few more moments. And we all would if we were that whale. We all would have done the same thing. The whale was alive but severely emaciated. Yes, it was. Thank you for saying that, by the way. I'm good at this week. One of the roughest weeks I've had in a long time. There's no end in sight for this. Blue whale which washed up near Mumbai coast, June 26, 2015. And that's emaciated. Very grainy pictures. And these villagers were trying to push it, coax it back into the ocean. So there was a few of these videos. There was quite a crowd showed up. These were all villagers, and they live right there on the shoreline. They were trying to get it back into the ocean. They weren't able to appreciate how emaciated it actually was. It gave it all it could to get up because there's wind and blowing right up on the beach, and it wiggled itself up on the beach it'll sink as soon as it goes back into the ocean if it did. But I mean, when you're looking at it, they didn't know when they're looking at it that it's severely emaciated, I would imagine. I don't imagine the average person there got more than a 6th or 7th grade education. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying. It's a very impoverished part of that country where and that country has what known as caste. And if you come from a family of what's considered a low caste or something, then you can't hope to get a decent job or to get a loan or to get a property or to marry up or marry. This whale, though, I was able to finally get some videos. There was quite a few videos. There's 7 or 8, 9 videos. They were all just the world's worst cameramen. All of them, the cameras, like, they're going, yeah. When you got a camera, hold steady, and then move it half the distance of the camera range, so you keep half of the, whatever you got half focused, only move the camera half, so that half stays there, and that way the perception when you're watching it, it's a lot more useful to people, no matter what the subject is, right? Birthday parties or whatever the case may be. You don't rattle the camera as much. You don't shake the camera. You don't have that jerky. Because a lot of people will go, and then they go, and then they go, and it's not enough time for your brain to process what you're looking at if you're on the other side, right? So I found another video. I was trying to find it. 24 feet long, about 3.5 tons. This is a blue whale. 3.5 tons. When they're born, they weigh more than that. This you can see the deformed body, completely deformed. That's from the emaciation, right? Just gut-wrenching. I hope Greenpeace, which of course won't, and the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society gets up to speed and starts having a conversation, starts being honest. I would love to see him support me. You know, I can't get out and do research like I want to and I should do in the field studies. I consider that a crime because we're honest and we're good at what we do, but it's a very expensive. I can't do anything that's very expensive, right? Everything is so expensive. You need a big budget to make it work, and you're not going to win every battle. We failed lots of times. I don't know how many times I failed. I don't know how many times. I certainly succeeded a hell of a lot more, but there's many times we tried our best to succeed in research expeditions and field studies and thought we could, but we just, everything I do is pretty Mickey Mouse, right? Trying to make it work at very low budgets. But we give it our best and we win a lot and we don't win them all, and that's acceptable. It balances itself out. The research for 6 years from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, 4 to 5 to 6 months a year on the ocean, because that was the only way. It was to stay out there till the job is done, right? But that blue whale is emaciated. Not maybe, not perhaps, but severe emaciation. Look at this poor fella. Carcass of a 20-foot long whale washes ashore, 2024. That brutal emaciation you're looking at. Don't even look like a whale. Looks like an alien, right? It's not a very old whale, but it's 1.5 tons. I'm not sure what kind of whale this one was, actually. It was suspected to be a blue whale or a bronze whale. Let's look at this for a moment. Does anybody know what that is? Is that a blue whale or a bronze whale? I'm pretty sure it's a whale or a prehistoric creature or an alien. It could be an alien. Don't look like any other whale I ever saw pre-Fukushima, I'll tell you that much. When I tried to search the picture, my screen went, don't do that again. You scared me. So I'm glad the week is over. They should do these shows 7 days a week. The industry don't stop picking on me. I might start doing it 7 days a week again. My goodness, eh? So busted up from yesterday, I couldn't do anything today. That was a rough day yesterday. Holy crap. I got another big dump coming on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. On top of what we got bitter temperatures. That's not going to go anywhere, what we got to do right now. We got another 40 centimeters coming or something. All I had to skidoo yesterday was only that much at the top of the screen was sticking out of the snow. I mean, it's wrapped in I have a double cover, right? And I have to jump it with a screwdriver, right, to get it to jump. And then once I do that, then the key is fine. Once it heats up, the key is perfect. It doesn't take long to heat up. It's a 4-stroke, right? It's really quiet. It'll fire up right away. But I got to change out that solenoid. And I went out yesterday, I was stuck in the snow. And I got a winch on the back of the skidoo just to drag me back a little bit. It's twice now to save my ass. I'm sorry, let me get back on track here. I want to get out and look for bird tracks or animal tracks in the snow, right? You know, I nodded off deer this afternoon for probably half an hour or something. And I dreamt I was diving, and there was all kinds of whales on the ocean floor. Some were underside, some were like they were rolling with the groundswell. They were rolling back and forth, and the whales were all. And I remember I was panicking, and I started. I dumped my weight belt, and it flashed up to the surface. And then I woke up. And I was like looking at this whale emaciated on the screen in front of me. I was like, holy shit. Ah. I closed the computer screen. I got up and walked around and got the kettle on, get a cup of tea. Sat back down about 7-8 minutes later, because it only takes 3 minutes to boil. And 3.5 minutes from your cup of tea, take the tea bag out. Sat back down, opened the computer up, and back to work again. That's the best way to get rid of the nightmares for me. It was suspected to be a blue whale or a bride's whale. I don't know. I'm going to print it out and hang it on my wall because I don't know what it is either. I'm going to print all of them out and hang them on my wall from this week. Last week and last month and the month before that. If you go in my playlist, you see what it means. Whale washes up and dies in Norfolk Beach in 6th UK stranding in weeks. In the 6th UK, they're in competition with the French, eh? Experts say the huge mammal stranded on the beach. Another sperm whale. They don't even belong down there on top of that. So anyway, I looks at the picture and I'm like, there's 2 of them there. Holy crap. The 6th whale that washed up on the beaches have all been males. And so I had to go through quite a few stories to get the pictures I needed, because they don't always give you that angle where you're able to. So 3 at Skegness. There was 6 at Texel. There's 2 whales. Where the number 1 up there on the map is 2. There's 2 beach / dead. And the number 2 spot. Those blue numbers up there corresponding to where they're finding the whales. Netherlands, United Kingdom, Germany. And then the question, of course, is, and I remember we covered this back then, right? I just don't remember that map in particular, but that don't mean jack shit when you think about how much we actually covered. Said it was reasonable to assume that the pods entered the North Sea together in the hunt for food, because they don't even belong in that area anyway. Interesting way to frame it. The question that's left still hanging is why they came in the North Sea in the first place. Well, there's no squid where they were 2. And whether the French, the German events are all connected, of course they are. They all starved to death. Again, right, they don't give you that shot where you can put that question to rest. But like, because we got so much experience, we know when we see the body where the skin is bunched up, and you can see the organs and the rib cages, and then you suspect that right away you're going to see, like, because humpbacks are different, right? They're a little harder to tell, say, than this poor puppy right here on a chilly beach. When you look at that whale there, that's a fin whale, I think. That is horrific. And I mean horrific emaciation, right? And of course, kids don't know any better. They probably want to be marine biologists, so they're trying to get used to it. That's what they'll be doing when they become a big shot marine biologist. They'll be climbing around on whales. Look, Ma, they'll be taking selfies and sending it to their loved one. Look at me, Ma. I'm somebody. That animal, though, man. That's brutal emaciation. Whale freed after getting stranded in D-side, and this is what experts think his chances are. What experts are they exactly, specifically? It's a fin whale, okay, you can tell right away that's emaciated. It doesn't matter if it's emaciated, by the way, it beached and died. And it died post-Fukushima with all of its genetic superior selection species that were built for our ecosystem. They're created by the elements of our ecosystem. They're supposed to be able to live in harmony. But Fukushima, 36 nuclear reactor cores melting down over 5 days, broke the food chain. They weren't broke it. They ripped it apart forever and ever and ever. How about this fella? A beached whale in the Philippines died due to ingesting 88 pounds of plastic. That's a really interesting question, because their throats are not designed to accept large chunks of plastic. Now, the Philippines is a very unique place in a whole lot of different ways. They have some pretty terrible habits. And one of them is, you see that city over there? Along the shorelines here are going to be these absolutely ragtag homes built over the water. The same area where all the sewage is coming down from those cities. And all the garbage thrown, that whole shoreline is all garbage, plastics and everything else, right? Diapers, you name it. And so we've seen examples of whales dying and dolphins and that, where objects were stuck down their throat that wouldn't have the ability to fit down their throat, would put in their mouths and stuff like that. Remember that seagull? Crazy lady the other day, who most likely put the seagull in his mouth in the first place. You can see the rib cage sticking out. Yeah, peanut head is unbelievable. The rib cage is poked right up. The spinal column is raised up and the skin is folded over. So the skin again was cannibalized as a resource for the body, because the muscle, the fat and the blubber were all used up, and then the only thing left then was the skin. So the skin, the species will actually, no matter what species we're talking about, they'll all do that same thing if they're able to survive that long, is they'll start cannibalizing the skin, anything attached to the interior, as energy. 1,100 pound, 1,100 pound, 15 foot long, juvenile male culvert beaked whale washed up in the Philippines over the weekend. There was over 100 showed up in the United Kingdom before 2020. 2017, I think it was. Over that 1 year period, scientists estimated there was there would have been at least 1,000 of them died in that period, because they found 10%, right? And that 10% was severe emaciated and was in different stages of decomposition. So they were dying out over a long period of time, but they don't even belong there. They went there in desperation, right? Instead of going the migratory route that they've been doing for millions of generations, because they couldn't find the nutrients, the food, the diet that is necessary for them, and that the water is actually sterile, very little oxygen, so it doesn't support the species they're hoping for, which we know now are going the same way as all these whales. 1,100 pounds and 15 feet long. Wow. That is wow stuff, right? Excuse me. Let me fix all this. Let me get back up. That blue whale, man, that is unbelievable that a whale could survive that long, right? But when you look at this bronze whale that weighs maybe 1,800 pounds, this was a few months ago, and he was, the other prize whale was just a little over a week ago up above it. And this was such a low-quality picture, but it's probably the most, to me, it's my favorite picture of madness, of the extinction event, right? Because what we're seeing is that if he didn't make it onto the beach, he would have sank. There was nothing there to keep him buoyant if he died, or to keep him floating if he died, right? This is a model of plutonium, but it's in the form of Neptunium-239. It's based upon Japan's TEPCO, which should have been arrested and put in jail for crimes against humanity immediately, but because they're a corporate personhood, they can't be held accountable. They can only give them a big fine. And then they're the fall guy for the nuclear industry now. So this decays to plutonium-239 after 2.5 days, 50% of that. Now the model is 20 days of plutonium. This model is of cesium-137. I'll come right back to that 1 second. So a significant amount of plutonium was released for months, and the radioactivity from Fukushima plant was measured globally and blanketed the entire northern hemisphere, blanketed. Now I put that sideways in order to make sure the words were legible. So you had a plutonium plume for months and months and months. We'd done the estimates. How do I tell this story? Hang on. Okay. Just bear with me 1 second. A bit of a headache now. It's because I'm upset from all day today about this stuff. I was the same way yesterday. I managed to shake it off last night. But there's something about it, covering all these whales the last week. Since last Thursday, all we've covered is emaciated whales everywhere worldwide. It changes you, eh? You know, when I was out doing the research expeditions, I'll maybe show you a bit of that in a few minutes. Let me get back on track first. So plutonium, Loveless Respiratory Research in New Mexico had done numerous studies. Just the one academic was participated in over 90 studies. Dr. Raymond Gilmay, for instance. This is Loveless Respiratory Research in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is the United States Navy Research Institute. And they they give dogs cancers, and then they let them out. They either sacrifice them, kill them, or they let them live out their life. So these 144 dogs were inhaled a single monocle dispersal inhalation of plutonium. And, of course, a beagle dog is not going to bite the scientists. That's why they use them. They're very gentle dogs. And you have a big nose, right? And so it's kind of an inside joke, I guess, with the industry. Tumors of lungs, the skeletal liver occurred about 3 years after the exposures. And so this means they're not going to be uptaking nutrition because their body's producing so many white blood cells, right? So they're going to end up like the whales eventually, too. If you weighed the dogs converted to the typical weight of a dog that age, that size, you would have seen a huge discrepancy because they would have not been able to maintain. Bone tumors in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death. It was a terrible way to go. And plutonium we're talking about, right? But you had 3 tumors, lungs, liver, and bones. The biggest killer was the bone tumors, 93 out of 144 dogs, and lung tumors in 46 dogs, and liver tumors in 20 dogs, but the cause of death 92 because of competing tumors of bones and lungs. And they occurred in the same animal often. If they lived long enough, they would have had 3 tumors. And the finding of the dogs suggested that similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans when they're exposed. But humans' kidneys are 50 times less efficient, not 50%, but 50 times less efficient than the animal's kidneys at removing the plutonium. So you're 50 times more likely to die than the dogs, which all died in the U.S. government's research laboratories, which was happened to be the Navy, Loveless Respiratory Research Institute. Curium isotopes, this is the same United States Navy Research Institute, and Dr. Raymond Gilmay in that particular study. Isotopes are major byproducts. So the curium isotope, forget about the gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas. Curium isotopes are the major byproduct in irradiated nuclear fuel. I'm going to explain to you why the whales are so emaciated here. Curium isotopes are the major byproduct, but curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Plutonium killed all the dogs. So one of the problems with the plutonium was it creates, and the Neptunium is the prime example, where this is a 20-day radioactive fallout, based upon a fraction of the inventories that were actually lost, by the way, of the nuclear reactor cores, right? They didn't include any of the fuel pools, and all 8 fuel pools were lost. Each fuel pool would have had 4 or 5 reactor cores stuffed into it because you don't have a repository. So we know that the alphas and the betas, because if you got plutonium, if you got anything, you got way more of curium isotopes. And it needs lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium. And this is the biggest byproduct of the radiated nuclear fuel before the meltdown. So the fuel pools, at 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, are hemorrhaging curium isotopes. And plutonium, and americium, and neptunium, and strontium, everything else. But here's the kicker. So think of this for 1 second. Think of that as alphas and betas and neutrons. And think of this as gamma. So think alpha, betas, and neutrons are going to sequester in your bones. It'll go other places. It'll go anywhere, in any of your muscles or organs too. But it certainly will assimilate into your bones, which means you're going to be producing radioactive stem cells. Particularly your developing species, like the whales and mammals and animals and everything else. Now, gamma ends up, say, in the thyroid and the pituitary gland and adrenaline glands, but particularly the thyroid gland. And so what it means is the thyroid is going to regulate the functions of the developing species, the birds, the animals, the mammals, the humans, everybody else. And so you're being attacked through radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells. And the hormones, of course, are dictating the functions of your body. The stem cells are dictating the health of your body, recoverability of your body, the growth of your body, and they work synergistically to enhance each other. And so the species that are in the meadows, the forests, the oceans are getting full body x-rays on top of that, because gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas, they pulse energy, all of them, almost at the speed of light. And when you hit the opposing so if a gamma hits an alpha or a neutron or a beta, or a neutron hits a beta or an alpha or a gamma, they won't mingle. They won't pass through each other. It's a braking effect. And that's what we call an X-ray. So you have gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas in that pile right there. And they're hitting each other. They're creating these full-body X-rays. What it means to the meadows and the forests and the ecosystem, the biota, is they're in an environment now which is not habitable to anything with replicating cells, because this stuff attacks everything with replicating cells. And so they're getting full-body X-rays. We're all getting full-body X-rays because of this elixir of evil radioactive fallout. And now think of the radioactive fallout this way. And so you got 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, and you're going to put fuel in every one of them today. Worldwide, there's 1,000 big crews are going to take 1/3 of a reactor core and put it in a fuel pool. Right? There's going to be 1,000 fuel pools accepting fuel. Now, there's no containment to the reactor fuel pools. So from that moment on, every 12, 14 months, you're going to take another 1/3 of a reactor core and put it in the fuel pool. So the emissions are going to double from the fuel pool every 12, 14 months. And here's what the fuel pools will do. Every fuel pool tomorrow, if that's what you've done, for 1,000 fuel pools all strategically all around the world, each one of them are going to replicate what I'm going to show you right now. This is the French government's model of radioactive fallout for Fukushima, but it's only based up on a tiny fraction of what will come out of a fuel pool on any given day. So think of a snowstorm, an invisible snowstorm in Japan, and this is going to be based on 30 days. This is day 10 right there. At day 10, Canada, United States, the Pacific is closed. This is approaching day 20. At day 20, the planet is almost buried in radioactive fallout. But there's 1,000 fuel pools doing this every day. This model is based on cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. Cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second for 600 years. So if it hits the gammas and neutrons, alphas and betas in the proximity of 600 feet, and it absolutely would and could and did and has and always will be and will never stop, all the fuel pools are hemorrhaging an incredible concoction. But Fukushima was a pulse event. So this was a 30-day pulse event. But that's what the fuel pools were. But we're talking about, wait for it, I'm just assuming there's somebody watching this who don't know this story, don't understand the dynamics and the significance, because this is what breaks the food chain we're looking at right now. No, not my head. Don't be mean. Here we go. Welcome to Madness, by the way. If you've never been here before. So I'm going to show you 4 pictures. This is the 15th of March 2011. This is day 4. This is the next year. This is reactor. And what you're looking at there is 4 reactors. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, they all lost their reactor cores that were stored at the top of each of the buildings. Hence the reason we're looking at stuff like that, even though that's not included in those models. Now, we know the fuel pools are gone because you're looking at the stump of reactor 3, which was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor, and you're looking at reactor 4. Now, officially, that never happened. Officially, that building looks like this. This is your media, your loving media. In order to tell that lie, make it work, all the media worldwide and all the universities and key government agencies and the big bloggers and the big alternative medias has to participate in that lie. You know, the big question is, why isn't people like David Icke pushing this narrative? Because he knows. So they pretend that, and if you talk about fake news, what a better picture than this one. Why is all the media worldwide pretending they're on top of a building that don't exist? And why is nobody calling them out on it? Why isn't Sea Shepherd Conservation Society and Greenpeace calling them out? Well, Greenpeace blocked me on every one of their Twitter accounts, for starters. This is the stumps of the reactor. So they put these contraptions over it. You can see the debris. You didn't clean it up because it's lethal doses. These contraptions were built off-site and then assembled by remote control cranes and the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, the immigrants that don't speak the language. For all 13 of you that is paying attention. Should we stop donating to Sea Shepherd, Conservation Society, and Greenpeace for hiding the Fukushima effect? Because they know about Fukushima. They know my research. They're 100%. That's why no foundations support me, because they can't continue to be a foundation, because their whole existence is based on hoodwinking you, not coming up with solutions or not acknowledging the harm, dangers. And I created this video, and I took snapshots of it and put fake reactor 4 there so I didn't have to play the video all the time. But I created the video of each one of these people saying they're at the top of Fukushima reactor 4, which officially, these are both the official pictures. But you can't go 150 feet above the building and have it looking like that when we lost it all, right? And at the top of each of the buildings, each of the 4 reactors, was 8 reactor cores. Now, we're being very conservative. We're lowballing that number. We're not naive, and we're not gullible, and we're not lawyers. We're trying to tell you the story and educate you. We're on an educational program that I've sacrificed decades now of my life to the pursuit of educating the population to make the world a bit better. Because I'm an idiot with a good heart, but I'm an idiot that thinks he can do something like that. All the animals died from the plutonium and multiple tumors. We know the plutonium was released for months and blanketed the entire northern hemisphere. What part about that is confusing to people? Is it because Sea Shepherd Conservation Society and Greenpeace didn't tell you? So you refuse to acknowledge the truth? Or because you're stupid? Because you refuse to acknowledge that what they're doing is very dangerous, because now we're all poisoned by the radioactive fallout. And as horrible as it is, mind-numbing as it is, and terrifying as it is, ignoring it is worse. You don't have, this is your responsibility, you're obligated, this is your obligation as a human on this planet to leave your mark. Here's your opportunity. Because this is Earth's last stand. This is planet Earth's last stand we're looking at. Just ask the blue whale what he thinks, or the bride's whale what they're thinking, or all the whales I showed you over the last number of days. You have no idea what's coming next week for you. There's going to be a lot more of this, and that, these, those, and them, and these ones, that one. There seems to be no end to it, really. And now we find out that the pygmy blue whales, which are not pygmy at all, in my books anyway, can get the same length as any major whale. 90 tons is a respectable weight. 180,000 pounds. And you can see that they're acknowledging now, they're alarmed to see large groups of them, large groups of the migratory whales, emaciated and malnourished. What that means, because they all travel at the same time on the same migratory route for millions of generations, is they're all emaciated. They're all malnourished. They all have rib cages, visible ribs and vertebrae are visible, and the backbones are visible because they're severely emaciated. They all eat the same food at the same time. So if any of them are emaciated, more than one of them are emaciated, they're all emaciated. Every last one of them. Because they eat the same food. And they're all showing up late, which means they're all starving. They're not strong enough to get there on time anymore, and they probably won't return for the next. We're not hearing them talking about any surviving babies on the migratory trip, which is really interesting too. That was omitted, I'm sure, on purpose. And when you're seeing this, you can assume that the babies can't survive this environment, and we are soon going to be 15 years down that road. Fukushima, yeah. And they feed on krill, the same as the fin whales, same as the majority of the species are. I mean, krill is a huge facet of the migratory food chain for all kinds of species. There's an absurd amount of birds are dependent upon the krill. There's an absurd amount of sea species that are totally dependent upon the krill. There's an absurd amount of birds that are dependent upon it to raise their fledglings with, right? We have 46 million migratory seabirds missing here for the last number of years. The biggest migratory run on the entire planet for seabirds are missing. And cliffs where they had raised their fledglings for millions of generations were stained with that millions of generations of excrement is not stained anymore. And growing up on the ocean, you would spot the stains on the cliff, right, as a marker that would, because back in those days there was no radar, there's no sounders, there's no There's no GPS or anything like that. And so there was like the Christmas tree on a point of land or a cape or whatever the case may be, or there was a humpback, or there was these, you would line them up and that would put you on your spot with your alarm clock, right? Which was high technology back in my day. Alarm clock. And a compass. And stay on course, because you'll be looking for the watch boy all morning. And you'll be out there all day. You end up getting seasick for a lot longer. Alarmed to see large groups looking emaciated, malnourished. It's not large groups, it's all of them. They're all eating the same food at the same time. So if large groups are emaciated, that means they're all emaciated. Every last one of them. No exceptions. And that's true for every species. And that's where we're to at 15 years, post-Fukushima, pulse event, extinction event. And it's not just the whales. And that the effects on the animals are well known, and it's well known that they're way more efficient than you are at removing the radioactive materials from your body. And that the biggest byproduct is not the plutonium, which it was, because curium is way worse, and it's the biggest byproduct. So wherever you find anything, and the numbers we're talking about, if you're not familiar with the subject, go watch the second half of last night's show, where I deep dive down those numbers. So do you believe that they are on top of that building 150 feet above it? If you think I'm right and that they're not 150 feet above that stump to your left, that nuclear meltdown, where 9 reactor cores disappeared, if you believe they're not at the top of that building, come on over to the winning side. It's a rough ride. You're going to be hated for the rest of your life, but eventually you're going to be pretty proud of it. It's an event. Fukushima was an event. And pretending this is not happening is the worst possible chessboard move you'll ever make. How are you going to protect yourself by ignoring this? How are you going to pretend that the food coming out of Japan is not absurdly radioactive and is lethal to your loved ones in increments over a short period of time? Why take that chance? Do you think I'm lying about anything I showed you tonight? Do you think any of the whales I showed you tonight weren't emaciated? Any of the species? Just last week. Brutal last week for everybody, I'm sure, and I don't blame you. And I know none of you that are regularly here, that's why you're here for in the first place, because you care about the species. Right? And you care about the truth. And you know it's here. You know you'll find it here. And then my phone number is always there, right? I'm accountable. All you do is find a lie I told, shoot a little video, put it on the internet, and the industry will do the rest for you. Okay? They hate my guts. They'll be happy to get you lots of views. My whole life is a tightrope for all the right reasons. I couldn't be more happier doing the things that I do every day. And the last week has been unbelievably humbling, heartbreaking, and sobering. I don't have any illusions. I just have facts. None of them are fun. Should we stop donating to Sea Shepherd, Conservation Society, and Greenpeace for hiding the Fukushima effects? And I get 12 people on my show. My video was posted 12 hours there at one point, or 7 hours, and only had 2 thumbs up, and that's not an accident. Lots of people gave me thumbs up, it just didn't register. But the industry is so wicked and so uncompromising, so uncaring, and so on board with an extinction event, so incapable of understanding it affects all their loved ones too. I'm fighting for you too, even though I don't like you. I'm still fighting for you. Fighting for your right to procreate and have children and raise them in a world that will nurture them instead of just poison them no matter what it is they consume or breathe or eat. It almost seems like a story that never ends on my side, because all I'm finding is mass species die-offs. On the rate, we cover this all the time, but I've never seen nothing like I'm seeing this week. It's showing up in my search engine everywhere I look. I can't escape it. So I think we need something with a bit of a push to it. I'm going to play Nuclear Exceptionalism. And you'll find that James leaves it on YouTube. You'll find him in the comment section there earlier tonight, I noticed. And you can link over Nuclear Exceptionalism, one of my all-time favorite anti-nuclear songs. It's definitely a rocker. It's a fun song if there's such a thing, but it helps reinforce that you have the moral high ground if you're anti-nuclear. The world loves you all to pieces because you picked the toughest trail, the toughest path ever taken. And just stay on that. You've done the right moral and ethical thing. Hugs for everybody. See everybody on Sunday night unless there's an event on the weekend. I'm looking forward to getting some rest anyway. Take care.
They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safe as sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. They chase the sun, all fusion proud. Ignore the barrels stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket, while curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Chart is clean, while whales rolled up beside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Now the rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them, too many sins. Keep your son, keep your lab coat pride, till you fix the waste you tried.